Hello there, it's William here from Wusik, and a friend asked me what I use, the software I use for creating my music and my projects, and I want to show everything that I use. Keep in mind that music for me is a hobby, so I don't invest a lot of money in it, so I always look for subscriptions and stuff that are not so expensive. So the first thing I use is Studio One Sphere. It's a monthly subscription. It's like $15 a month, and I get Studio One Professional. And so here it is, Studio One Professional. And it comes with several plugins, and the most stuff that I use is macros and the listen bus on the mixer. I could use the free version, but the macros is just something that I can't really not use, because I have a small box that I created with arcade buttons, and each button does something, and it requires macros to function. So without the professional, I wouldn't have that. And I also like to use the compressor that comes with it for side gating drums. The limiter that comes with it, I also use it a lot. Let me see if I can open it up. Where is it? Because I have two monitors here, so it opens on the other monitor. This is a very good limiter, so I'm always using it. And also a lot of buzz and effect channels that I use, so the free version doesn't have that. It comes with several instruments, but I don't use any of the included instruments. I just end up using a Wusik Station for a lot of stuff. That's my own creation. So right now Wusik Station is on version 10, so it's Wusik Station X. So here it is. I can just drag and drop. But on my box of arcade buttons, I have a button just for Wusik Station with which I click and open up. And that's the one I use mostly for wave sequencing stuff, for different sounds that other plugins don't do. Sorry. I also like the browser of the Studio One. It's very easy to use, and I get all the instruments and effects, the loops that comes with Studio One, which I don't have anyone installed because I use Splice instead. Then I have my files. I can go here to my Splice files directly if I want. I don't know why it's not going directly. Oh, because I don't have any sound downloaded right now. But I have some of my wave samples, and I can search for, let's say, a crash, and I can get a list of crash sounds very quickly. It is looking inside drum sounds, so that go to wave samples. Now it's looking inside wave samples. So all my crash sounds. And Studio One is very large. I'm not going to show much about Studio One because it just does everything for me. I haven't missed any option in it. I came from Sonar 13 X3, and it's just great. It does everything that Sonar did for me, and the price for $15 a month is really good. I've been using for a year, so I already paid a bit over $166, but the professional version is almost $400, so it's good. It's worth the money. So this is my template. Apart from Wusik Station here, let me remove it just to get a starting point. So this is my template. Every time I start a song, I start with this template. So it has a Splice Bridge plugin, which allows me to use the Splice application, and it's going to sync with Studio One and produce a sound from Studio One. Because if I'm using the ASIO driver, it's going to make a bit difficult to hear what is going on, because the ASIO driver is not multi-client. So I have to use the application. Right now, my application, I forgot to put the login information, so I'm going to go to the site instead. So if you go to the splice.com/sounds, let's say I want to look for a drum sound, I can look here, let's say for fills, and it's going to give me a list of sound. I can use the up and down arrow keys on my keyboard to select. I can select genres and tags and stuff like that. So Splice is very good for drums. I also use sometimes for bass, and a lot of times I use for vocals too, because I don't want to hire any vocals because they are mostly expensive. I did hire for a few tracks. If you go to my site, come on, sorry. If you go to my music site, that's calfels.com, and you go to the first album, the Alien Invasion, there are some tracks, like here, the third track featuring Beanie Bars. I paid for this rapper girl from India to sing for me, and also on part 10, and she did a very good job. And I also hired another woman called, I don't know how to pronounce that, so I'm just going to highlight the name there so you can see. Cochrane. And she did a few talking for me, like an actor job on the Come to Us and Captured, I think. The two tracks she did the vocal, not singing, but just talking like an actor. And then on the end of line, I also hired the Beanie Bars again for the part 4, Fear Itself. But those are expensive to get, around $100 and 120, stuff like around that. And for me, since this is a hobby, and I have to check from my boss what she thinks about it, so I'm not doing that anymore at the moment. I'm just using the Splice vocals and sometimes tracklib.com vocals too. But Splice has more options, and while Tracklib has more complete songs where you can just replace stuff like I did in the Not Your Boy track, part 11 from End of Line. And on the cinema track, one that I really love is the Indiscretion. It's also a track from vocal track from Tracklib, and it's just great. So let's take a look at the template now. Splice Bridge, okay, it's there. Then I have my mix FX here, and then my listen bus. The listen bus is great because I can add it. And when I render the track, it's not going to process those plugins. So it's very good, so I don't forget to disable plugins and stuff like that, because before I was just using everything on the main and I was going to render and I forgot to disable plugin, and then I had to do everything again. Just let me drink some water. My air conditioning is on, so it's a bit noisy today because it's 39 Celsius today, almost 100 Fahrenheit. It's very hot. So what I use on the listen bus is my real phones, so I can correct my AKG K240 MK2, yeah, I think that's it. So I can correct a bit. I use mostly for that. Sometimes I add a bit of high and low and the deep bass, because my ears are not what they used to be. I'm 46, so I'm starting to get a bit loss of hearing in some areas, and that's normal for my age. But everything else I turn it off, because I rather use the Waves CLA NX plugin instead. I just find the sound of this more natural and has a bit of more bass for my feeling. It's just what I like to use. So I don't use the head tracking. I can just disable it. And I don't use the headphone EQ because there is no AKG of my model here. So I have to use a real phone instead. But maybe next year I get another better phone, and I get one from this list, then I can get rid of the real phones altogether and use an EQ instead. But the real phones is also good because it has a limiter on it, and it works very nice for listening. And you can see I'm using Studio Rack from Waves. Why I'm using Studio Rack from Waves? Well, because I have a SoundGrid server. So let me minimize this guy here and this guy. So I have a SoundGrid connected to my network. So it's going through a switch, and the computer and the SoundGrid server are connected to the same switch. Everything is 1 gigabit network, and this way I can offload any Waves plugin, almost any Waves plugin. From my list of plugins, there is just one that doesn't offload, and it's the Meta Filter, but everything else I can offload, and I can save on CPU resource, because my computer has a Ryzen 8 core, but the problem with my CPU is that it's just 3 gigahertz, and the boost never happens because I'm always using all the cores. So if I have one track that has a lot of plugins, it's going to hit that peak for one of the cores very quickly, because no digital audio workstation can split one track processing between multiple cores. That's not possible. That's really impossible to do. So it has to use one core because it's a sequential processing. It has to do each effect relies on the signal of the effect before. So one track will always use one core for all the effects that you add as inserts. And with the SoundGrid, I can get a bit more power, especially because Wave plugins on the SoundGrid runs very low resource. So it's very great. And I just use for that. I don't use anything else. I just get if I go here on my Studio One audio settings, I just go and use the Waves Grid audio device. So the sound goes directly to a Waves Grid mixer, and from there it goes out to the sound card, which in this case is my Asus. I forgot the name of the card. Let me see. It's an audio card. It's not an audio interface. Asus X09 U5. Why I have this card? Because it has a great microphone amplifier, has a great ASIO, the driver. I can get like 4 milliseconds, even 2 milliseconds if I want. Normally I use 6 milliseconds because anything below that I don't notice any difference, and I'm not very virtuoso on the piano anymore. Virtuoso on the piano, that was a great phrase. So I don't really care for lower than 6 milliseconds. During mixing, I can always put like 10 milliseconds and it's still fine. But I have to use the ASIO because the Studio Grid requires an ASIO card in order to work. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And There's a mixer inside it that I can use if I wanted, but I don't find any use for my needs. So I just have the one channel from the sound grid audio interface going from input to output. So we just go back to the sound card, and I don't record anything with this sound card. I already use my audio. What's it? Where is it now? Let me show you what I'm talking about. Wusik. I created a small application called Wusik Audio Connect that allows me to use, let's say I want to connect my microphone that I'm using right now. So it's this one, microphone SKP. So it's a Behringer cable that has a small audio interface inside it. It's very noisy, as you can hear. It's not great, but I can filter it with some plugins, and it sounds okay. I did several tracks with this microphone already. You can check on the end of line. All the first male vocals talking, it's me. So I can use the Wusik Audio Connect to input audio without having to go through the sound grid interface. So on the studio rack, anything that I put on the studio rack, I can go here, native, and I can go switch out to sound grid. I have to turn it to the sound grid interface. That's why it's not working. Wave sound grid. Okay. It's still not working. Did I forget to do something? Let me try load again. New song. So I select my template. Okay. Let me open my sound grid and see if everything is running. Up. It's up, so it's running. So I hope I don't destroy the audio by doing this. I keep forgetting to turn off the red head tracker. So let me see now. Studio grid. Okay, now it shows up. Switch all the studio racks to sound grid server. So if you click that, you can see now that it's going to jump from 0 and jump it to 4 channels now. So now I'm using 4 channels, 15%. But this percentage here is a bit crazy, because sometimes you have 100% and it's not glitching, because I have 4 cores on the sound grid server. So everything I put in here, I can switch from native, which is going to run on the local computer, or switch to sound grid server. So it's really saves me a lot of time. And right now it's running this plugin, the CLA-NX, already running on the sound grid. And a great thing about this setup is that I don't have to worry about connecting to the sound grid server and getting video feedback to check the plugin interface or anything like that, because the sound grid server is just running a Linux operating system. You can turn it on and off anytime. It's very safe to turn it off. You don't have to shut down it or anything like that. So it's really great. And all the interface is still running on my computer. It's just sending the parameters to the server plugin. So on my mix, on my main channel here, I also have another studio rack, which has 2 plugins. So that's the... let me open it up and see the name. It's the Abbey Road Studios TG Mastering Chain. I like it because it has a great spreader effect here. So I'm always using the spreader effect. It has also great equalizer options. A high pass. I don't use the limiter. And sometimes I use the input levels to adjust a bit if it's too loud or too low, so I don't have to adjust all the tracks. So I use it for that. It has a great sound, and I really like it. So mostly I just use the EQs, the high pass filter. Sometimes the presence here, which is another equalizer that adds a bit of presence, and then the spreader. The spreader I always use because it does a very nice stereo effect without being too much and without breaking the mix. Then I pass all the main channel, so that's going to be my master mix, through a master bus compressor. So that's the Waves G Master bus compressor, SSL. So it has a very great sound because you really need to do some compressing because you master. So this is already doing some bit of mastering, those two plugins. And sometimes where I'm composing and mixing and doing the project, I also adjust things to get to a closer to a master as possible, because it's just the way I like to do it. You don't have to do it, of course. Then I use the IQ. Come on, where is it? Studio Rack and IQ T-Rex Classic Clipper. I got this for free from IQ, so I could review and made a video about it. So they were very nice to send me a not for resale copy, and I like it because it allows me to limit the audio a bit with a bit of saturation, but I still have to use a limiter. How to call it? Brick wall limiter in the end, because it still is going to allow a bit of peak to go through. So I use the T-Rex Classic Clipper, then I use the brick wall limiter from Studio One, which is going to give me a true non-clipping audio in the end. So those are very important. I just use the default settings. I rarely adjust anything because they sound great as they are. Then I use Span Plus, which I also got not for resale copy to review it, and it's very good. It's from Voxengo. I think that's how you pronounce it. I hope it. And it's great to see everything that's going into the audio, to see if you have too much bass, too much high, too little mid, which is always the case. So I can adjust the mid a bit, adjust the highs and the lows. But the plus option also has the option to take screenshots. So let's say you put just the kick and you take a screenshot at the maximum peak, then you run everything else but the kick with it to see if the kick level is not too loud or not too low. Because since my ears are not perfect anymore, and ears fatigue really gets in the way after 2 hours of mixing and composing, especially after 4 hours, you really need something like this to see things going and have a better idea of the sound. So let me see if I find here anything. Let me just put a crasher here. So just go like that. It shows the waveform, and it's already how to call it. It will show on a straight line a perfect mix. So if you have a perfect mix, it shows in a straight line. So let me see if I can get just a minute. Let me find something here, then you understand a bit better. So my samples, wave samples, pink noise, here, pink noise. I think that's the one I want. It's a bit, that's not the correct one. Oh, here it is. I remember that creator one is, okay, so this is pink noise with 5 decibels of rollover. I don't know how many frequencies it takes to do the rollover, but this shows a perfect mix. So if you listen to tracks from commercial from great artists and you run through scope, you're going to notice that they follow this line. Mostly the mid is going to be a bit lower, of course, but the high and the end is going to try to stay in this like this on this same line, and that's what I go for. That's also called pink noise mixing, but in this case I created my own pink noise based on 100 or more commercial tracks, because it gave me a better idea of what it should look like. So okay, that's the last one that go on my mix. Then I use a lot of splice. Then I'm going to talk a bit about my box here of the stuff that I use. So I have a box with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 12 buttons, and each button does one thing, but 2 buttons are like shift and control buttons, so it allows me to load stuff. So the first thing I have, the 3 buttons is for quantizing MIDI notes. Then I have one for sound rack. So every time I want to add something that I want to use the Waves plugins, I open up my sound rack, and here I had a lot of plugins, like the tape emulation, analog delay, vocal rider. I have vocal rider. I think that's the demonstration version. Yep, it's a demonstration version. It's no longer on my machine. The equalization I use most is this one. I don't know why it always open on my second monitor. So this is the equalizer I use the most. I really like it. It has a high pass filter, low frequency boost, mid frequency boost, and a high frequency boost. And the analog I don't use, it's just add noise. And everything else I just leave it is. Lately I got the small brother and now the big brother, the Equalizer 4. It's all loading on the SoundGrid server. The only thing I find annoying is that it takes around 6 seconds to the plugin to start working after you load the SoundGrid, and until that it will mute the whole channel. But that's okay, I just wait, it's just a bit of annoying. And the EQ4 has more options, but this one I started using just on the past 2 weeks. I end up using more the EQ3. But the plugins that I use more, let me see, the EQ3, the F6 equalizer with real-time analyzer. It's loading. Okay, so here, let me play the pink noise. So I really like this one because it has options not just for equalizing EQing a band, but to also add like a compressor to each band. So it's also a multi-band compressor in some way. So it has a lot of options for that. I'm not going to explain each one, but that's just the one I use most. Then the third I use most is the FX or Apex exciter, and this one is very good because it has a lot of brightness to the sound without just EQing it with more brightness, because it's an exciter, that's why. So you just have to use to hear. Let me remove everything. No, not like that. Remove. For instance, I create a macros for all my buttons. So let's say I just want to add another studio rack. So let me remove the studio rack here. So my compressor here, so CLA, I press Shift and a button with its name, and it's going to load the CLA compressor already inside Studio Rack. I like this compressor because it has a very particular sound to it, and it has an option to compress or limit the sound. And it's very straightforward to use. You can just use the presets or just tweak the gain and peak reduction, and that's just what I do with it. Then I use the fat button, the one knob fatter, and this guy here is going to make it fat anything. It's just one knob to make it fat, and that's it. The parallel particles from ships, I don't know if pronounces like that, is this guy. Ships, parallel particles. And this is very good because it's like a multi-band equalizer with easy to use parameters like thick, bite, sub, and air. And it's just super good on the sound and easy to use. So I use that a lot, on drums. Then I have my reverb, delay, and my vocals chain. I already created another video for the vocal chains, and you can check on my YouTube channel. But the reverb I use most, let me load this one. I have several reverbs, but I kind of end up using more the Age reverb from Waves. Waves was very expensive, so it was not something that I could get. But since they added the subscription option, I started using the subscription, which was like $17 a month for several plugins, more plus 5 plugins of my choice. So I was using that. But 2 years ago, they started doing the promos because of the pandemic. And the plugins got very cheap, like $29 a plugin, but you could get 2 free plugins when buying $50 or $60, something like that. So I got all of the plugins now paid. I'm no longer using the subscription, and now it's very cheap to get. Otherwise, the subscription is still there, and still a great way to demo the products after the trial period expires. And I have a lot of stuff here that I use every now and then, like the center plugin, which I got last week. It's very great to add, how to say, side equalization and also center equalization. It's a bit hard to explain. I'm still learning how to use it, so I don't know. The reverb, I also have the convolution reverbs, but I have my own Wusik XV, which does that. So I don't use much those guys here. I thought I was going to use, but I ended up not using. I have the AB Road plates, which is nice, but also end up not using. But for vocals, the 2 ones that I use a lot is the real-time tune and the vocal bender. The real-time tune I use almost for every audio that I have, so I can make it adjustments in real time to the audio and let it do its thing. So I already create a preset. So create a scale 1. Then I can just let's say I want to use D. Then I can select which notes are going to be using, which notes should go up, and which notes should go down. And it works great. Then I just mess with the note transition, and that's it. I don't mess with anything else. The note transition is going to make it more obvious that it's waves that's like auto-tune. And as you boost it up, it's going to make it less obvious, but it's going to be also more out of tune. And the bender is just to tune the vocals up and down and stuff like that. Then I have a lot of the one knob plugins. Right now, I'm mostly using just the feather. The noise reduction, I use the X noise for my microphone. I'm not using right now because I can't figure out how to use it with OBS, so I'm using Reaper's rear filter instead. Then there's a Ovox. Ovox is very good, and real ADT I use almost on 100% of the tracks because it does a double voice, and it sounds so full and stereo and wide. While Ovox, it's a bit hard to use because it has its own sound. So I don't remember which track I used it lately, but maybe on my new Das Techno project I may use a bit more. It's stalling now. Come on. Okay, here it is. What happens to the interface? Oh, here it is. So, Egypt. No, where is the button? Oh, here it is. So the Vox is kind of close to VirSynth, but it's also different. It's a bit hard to explain, so you have to check on the site what it does. But I use mostly instead I don't have it on my thing here. What? Synth. Vocal Synth 2. That's the one I use most. So I rather use this one instead. Oh, no resizable interface. Yeah. Okay, there's no zoom. I can't believe there is no zoom in this. I remember using it with a very large. No, there is no. Weird. Enable closing. Well, anyway, it's a great plugin for doing vocal sounds like robotic and stuff like that. So that's the one I use most. But it's been a while since I have done any track that used that. So let me talk about my instruments now. Well, Wusik Station, of course, I already talked about. So I'm going to show my second one. I don't use Contact. I refuse to use Contact because Contact is evil, but don't listen to me. So I got the East-West Composer Cloud subscription, which is $20 a month, and it gives me a lot of acoustic stuff that I don't have with Wusik Station, especially guitars and drums, and especially big-ass orchestral sounds. So I don't know how much memory is taking on my computer, but it's taking a lot. I had to free up space and stuff like that. But it's just insane. It's just great, especially the orchestral stuff. But I'm not a professional when it comes to orchestral sounds. From what I heard on the internet, it's not super like A++. It's like A-. But for me, it sounds like A++. So I don't know, especially for $20 a month. So it just works and it's great. And that's the one I use. But there's a lot of other weird stuff in the middle, like the dark side has some very different sounds to it. Storm drums. Steve, no, not Steve. Where is the other one? Pro drummer Wusik or Spike Sand. I don't know which one I used last. What is it? I'm trying to remember the one I use more. Oh, here's Joe Cramer Drums. The Joe Cramer drums alone are just so good, very good. I use it on several tracks already, to the point that I'm starting to think if I use it twice, drum loop, and I don't remember. But still, it's very great. Then, let me see. Waves also have some great instruments, and the Element is my favorite one. Sorry. So this is the one for waves, and it's very good for virtual analog sounds. And it also has a great sequencer built in. So it's small, it's light, but it has some very great bass sounds, especially if the filter is very good. Then there's Codex Studio, which is great. Syntronic from IQ, I'm starting to get my hands around it, but I haven't used it too much. I have Ultra Analog from AAS, I think is the name. No, I put the wrong key. Let me load again. I'm using my buttons. Oh, here it is. Ultra Analog Session from AAS. It's okay. It has some good sounds. It's very straightforward to use. It's not great. I think Syntronic is going to be better for me, but I haven't really used it. So I'm mostly using Virto Station and Opus, and then the Element from Waves. But then I also have Cyclops. Cyclops comes with the East-West Composer Cloud. I try to look on the site if they talk about it, but they don't seem to talk about it. I don't know why. But it comes because it's from Sugar Bytes, and this one can make some really strange and weird sounds, and I really love it. It really gets me something that I haven't heard before. But it ends being a one-trick pony in the end. I use a thing on 3 tracks so far, while the Opus I use on almost every track. Let me see what else. I also have Virto Station, but it's been a while since I used it, to be honest. This one I purchased it a long time ago. It has some nice synth sounds and arpeggiators, but I'm starting to use it less and less. Maybe on my new techno project is going to be used more. I think that's pretty much it. I have some other ones here. My list is actually very large, but I don't use every single one. I have created another application which I call TL1. Let me see if it loads up here on my other computer. How do I change it? Full screen. Okay, where is it now? Here's TL1, which I load on my second screen, and then I can select plugins and stuff. But some of those, like the Roland stuff, I'm no longer using it. I think Roland Cloud is more for nostalgia than anything else. I like to get some new, different sounds instead. And I have a lot of other stuff here that I use every now and then. I have to update this application to really use it. Like I also use a lot the True Iron. So let's see if it's going to add through iron there. No, it's no longer working. Because I need to use another plugin to route the MIDI information. But the True Iron is a great plugin because it adds transformer noise or transformer saturation to the audio, and it can get some very interesting results. Let me see what else. Felt filter not using. The meta filter is one that is not compatible with SoundGrid. But the meta filter I use a lot, and it's very great. It has a nice filter sound, but it also allows me to manipulate the filter without having to worry about creating automations and stuff like that. So I can use an LFO, a sequencer, and apply the filter like that. Let me adjust my air conditioner because it's getting very hot here. It's 28 degrees, but it's set to 25, but the sun is blasting on my windows here. I already closed the curtains. It's crazy. I'm just trying to look if there's anything else that I don't remember. Oh, the Aura Verb. Sometimes I use for gate sounds because it has a very nice gate convolution already loaded into it. So it has a gated sound. It's just convolution reverb. So it has a great sound, but I'm still learning a bit of some other options like my LX480. It has some great sounds too, but I haven't messed around too much with it to really test. Okay, I really need to update this list and start using again this software. It's been a while since I used it. Mostly using my buttons on my box. And since I have a shift and control, maybe I can add an option for shift control and another set of 10 options. I'm going to leave a link in the description for the video about this box because it's very easy to build using Arduino and it can really help out. So that's pretty much it. Everything I could think about it. And I hope this is clear and easy to understand, and it helps with anyone that's creating music. And that's it. Thanks for watching.